Hello everybody and welcome to the first season recap of Code Geass, or the season 1 recap, rather. So I'll quickly go over just technical facts first. Now first off, the animation quality. It is pretty freaking good. The animation is certainly really good. And while there are many moments where it's rather minimalistic and there's not much idle movement and there's a lot of lack of movement in some scenes, the attention to detail makes it look a lot more natural, should we say. There are a lot more, the environments are always very detailed and they look very fancy. And the character design is more realistic to humans, but they look a bit too thin for humans. While that is definitely not too distracting, it's something that just comes to my mind immediately, that the characters are very, shall we say, noticeably cartoonish because of that. They maybe do not look exactly human, but that's not bad. That's just an artistic style choice. I really like the overall design of everything because it has there's a lot of focus on just general technical mechanical creations such as those nightmares and tanks and that kind of things in general. They are very intricately designed and they are rather unique looking, so you can easily distinguish one creation from another, from their very minute details to their actual coloring patterns. They are all very easily recognizable. They have very unique designs, at least from each other. Like, generally speaking, they are maybe not that unique from the time that this show was produced, but they're still they look really good. And their movements in battle is something that looks excellent. So on the technical side of things, the graphics, the visuals, it's top-notch design, as well as every character has been designed rather well, and there are very few plain characters in the show. And those who are even then they have a lot of details that make them unique. While I won't go into examples, let's take Ogi for an example. I won't go too deep in the details, but just look at Ogi's character design. He has few distinguishing characteristics, and he looks still like a plain human being. And that is pretty good, because you can make someone who looks plain and still be easily recognized. While that is realistic, it also makes it useful for us viewers. And I don't have to talk about I don't think I have to talk about the design of Zero. It's done rather well, and he looks a lot like an ungodly like a godly being, or rather unholy being. Like, he looks rather demonic in his normal stance when he looks so confined in the cave. That's just my interpretation of him, because he kind of looks like a vampire in a way. Like a vampire sleeping in his coffin, although he doesn't have a coffin and he stands up straight, but that's the point. He looks otherworldly, should we say, and always has such a majestic movement. Now, on another scale of things, the actual effects on battle are pretty freaking good. They don't look too distracting, and they are definitely very well fit into the whole theming around the world, and they look realistic enough that we are not it doesn't break the immersion that much, or it doesn't break it at all, rather. Especially like those hadron cannons that the huge black nightmare has. Those looked really cool, but they looked like they could actually be they look realistic in a way that you could believe that they are actual cannons from that. But that's because of the show's gradual development in that point, and you could easily get into the effects and believe that those are real. Look, that would be created normal, like it would be a man-made machine. That just the attack effects look really good. Now, on the animation department of movements, the people actually, especially Zero, have a very majestic movement in the way that there's a lot of grandiose in their movement. They are very grand, pompous, and really flary. But that is the exact point of Zero and just the royalty in general. And that is a very good thing, I think, because The show is very prone to using cliches and normal, very theatrical and dramatic moments and movements and speeches and all sorts of things like that. But they play to those events. They play them like a violin. They use them to their greatest strengths and they unabashedly just use them. They do not try to make any sort of excuses for them, but rather they play to them completely. They take them and use them as they will. And it fits really well into the whole character design concept of Zero especially, as well as the whole Britannian Empire, as it is a royalty-driven empire, and the royalty speak like royalty. So that is another very good point, that the whole show very well builds into this whole... It feels like it has a lot of cliches, but it differentiates enough from the cliches that we are not getting bored. And it plays to them so well that, like, it uses them, but it uses them perfectly. And that is one of the main themes, is the whole grandiose plans and huge bombastic speeches. I really like that element of the show. And every element in the show builds onto those factors, from animation to music to voice acting to the storyline in general, the taking down of an empire the size of 1/3 of the world. Now that is a huge goal, and it's a major factor in the storyline. Now in the sound design department, the sound effects are at the very least passable, and in some moments for certain weapons they are freaking amazing. Again, I'm going to have to speak about the hadron cannons, because if I remember that completely right, I'm not exactly sure about that name, but those cannons on the Black Nightmare, those cannons sounded amazing. While normally the sound effects are rather stock with just basic explosion and gunfire, it doesn't mean that it's not fitting, because normal nightmares just use cannons and normal explosions and crashes and slashes like that, and they fit very well and they are not too distracting. And then this music kicks in. There's music sometimes. There's not always background music, but rather it starts the scenes and transitions from one scene to another. But in the middle of the scenes there's often not that much music, because it would distract us from the actual tension that was happening. Usually the music starts off rather loud and then quickly quiets down, which is a way to let us all just quickly mellow out and focus on the story that is being told. But it also quickly, because it starts out loud, it allows us to immerse ourselves in the scene. That is a very interesting way and an effective way to get us changing from one scene to another, and makes it seem more fluid. Especially since the soundtracks often very well flow into each other, and because they are quiet down in the end of the scene, every scene, it doesn't really break from one soundtrack to another like it abruptly, and it doesn't bother us that much, at least personally. Again, I speak like I'm professional, but I'm honestly, these are just my opinions. But yeah, and the soundtrack design, there are various sounds or the background music in the show, and they are used well. Some music is repeated, especially the one music that plays on the less serious scenes, and it is my least favorite. But that's because it's repeated and it's not that interesting, should we say. But it's not bad. It's definitely not bad, and it flows very well, as I said. It flows into those boring, so to say, boring scenes rather well. So I feel like that, even though that music is my least favorite, it's still not bad. But the other music, on the other hand, the other soundtracks are freaking gorgeous, and they are really emphasize the emotions from sadness to grief, the majestic, pompous fights and huge climactic events. The soundtrack is actually very well designed. I really do like it, and they don't play it too often, so that when the music really kicks in, it blows it out of the park, because we don't hear that much music usually. But when there is music, its effect is emphasized rather well. Then on the character design department, there are naturally some stereotypes, but they each have their own unique character quirks, and as I said, they play into the stereotypes very well, and they even take advantage of the stereotypes, and then even flip them on their heads, such as Suzaku, the actually proud, good-hearted, the human character, the one who drives for greatness, and then in the final scenes, he is driven forward by madness and anger. And that is how they flipped it on its head. They played on it the whole season and then turned it on its head. And that is majestically well done. It's fantastic. And not only that, the final scenes flip almost every character on their heads. The calm-natured, the calculative, the always cold-hearted, calculating Zero finally makes an emotional decision to abandon the invasion and instead go for Nunnally. And because of that, we had the final scenes. So his character also changed rather dramatically, but because it was being built on the whole season, it is the most reasonable choice for his character. As well as for Karen, who was always the brash, the loudmouth, but still obedient. And when Zero was revealed to be Lelouch, she was completely shaken. She didn't know what to do, and she was completely driven. She was broken. Again, they really flipped the characters in the end, and the effect is very great because they had stayed very consistent and stereotypical until the end. Even though Zero is, or Lelouch rather, is the stereotypical mastermind, I want to say he's antagonist, but he is the protagonist really. So he really is the protagonist, but he is also rather antagonistic, should we say. He is completely insane at this point. But it's magnificently insane, and it's relatably insane. His character is the mastermind, the calculative human being, but he also has human flaws, and I'm quite glad that they have played to his flaws, and he makes mistakes, which is very important to make him, well, not seem overpowered. But honestly, his plans have been far too successful usually. But then in the final scenes again, final episode, it fails. Everything goes to hell. I really like how the show uses the stereotypical tropes of animes and then completely uses them to shock us in the final scenes. Now, from my research and the comments, it seems that there was 1 year hiatus between season 1 finale and season 2 first episode. Even though they knew where they were getting the season 2, it's still 1 year wait. That is pretty harsh for that kind of cliffhanger. And the show is very prone to using cliffhangers between episodes. I don't think that's a bad thing per se, but for those who watched it during the airing, it certainly would be annoying. Now, on the other hand, I can just immediately jump to season 2, so I'm gonna do that. So this has been the season review vlog. I know it's a shorter one because I want to keep these tight and confined. I want to keep them so that I can upload these to YouTube at the very least. And I hope you weren't bored, and if you disagree with me on some points, certainly let me know. And I'm waiting to hear your comments. I want to hear, do you agree with the statements I have made? So I thank you all very much for watching. I'll see you in the season 2 later today. So thank you all very much. And stay awesome as always. Have a great day. Ganmu out.